Wenn eine Gesellschaft kollektiv von starken Männern regiert wird ungericht vertischte Gewalt immer die Oberhand gewinnen. When a society is collectively ruled by weak men, unwarranted violence prevails. Stick around, I will explain. Now, before anyone sees this as some attempt to blame politicians, or I'm looking towards the leadership of politicians when I say the men of the society. And when I talk about collective leadership, I'm not just talking about politicians. I'm talking about men collectively in the society, okay? Throughout the society. Because I don't believe that now is the time to play politics, so to speak. These sort of issues are national issues that should transcend the political divide. But of course, if there is viable political solutions, then we also have to look at those possible solutions. So we have to understand one thing in any society, that the people who generally have monopoly and the control of violence in the society are actually the men in the society. So when you see there is unwarranted violence among the youth of the society, when there is unwarranted violence against the women of the society, or the children of the society, or the elderly of the society, that, my friends, is a reflection of weak collective leadership of men in the society. And again, I'm not just talking about at a political level. I'm talking about throughout the stratas of the society. Because men have a very important function in many societies, in families, in clans, in communities, in tribes. Their job is to protect and to provide for the people who are entrusted to them. Whether it be the men in the family, whether it be the men in the community, whether it be the men in the village, whether it be the men collectively in the society. This is how it works. So young men cannot engage in unwarranted violence against each other unless it is allowed by the real men in the society, because they will know how to put a stop to it. A matter of fact, if they raise their young men, they will teach them in very subtle ways how to de-escalate and prevent much of the violence in the city. It's the same thing. If you have uncles, brothers, fathers, grandfathers who are strong men in the society, that will serve as a deterrent of violence against women, children, and the elderly. Because the people would consider or even think about bringing violence to these vulnerable parts of the population would know that there would be grave consequences if they were to do such. And no matter how much mankind has that beast-like nature, mankind is very logical in many respects and calculating about what they do. So if they know there is going to be severe consequences for their action, they would think in that moment. There is something that will click and tell them, I have to be cautious, I have to be careful, because if I deprive people of their life, it may be possible that my life will be deprived of me. This is how they would reason. They're not stupid. You see, again, in especially an organized society, there's institutions within the society to ensure that there is some sort of deterrent. And there's also institutions that are aimed to engage in preventative action. And of course, as always, the emphasis should be on preventative action. But you see, when the people are entrusted to create institutions and to create procedures and processes so that there is preventative action, when they are negligent for whatever reason, then we end up with grave situations and consequences that we have seen recently in Grenada. And that is why in one of the videos back in the days, I said, look, for all the problems that Grenada has, okay, you see these people worrying about US-Venezuela spat. Okay? All these intellectual petit bourgeois, these sociologists, these psychiatrists, these intellectual petit bourgeois in Grenada, okay? when they should be focusing on the issues at hand, the issues that plagues Grenada, guess what? They're focusing on quote-unquote big-time issues between the U.S. and Venezuela. That is why they're distracted. That is why they can't see viable solutions to the problems that exist within their society that is facing them right in front of their eyes. And it could be also that the reason they don't pay attention to these issues is because they don't get fame for doing that. And of course, there is a dimension that it does not affect them as much as it would of people of the lower income value and people of the lower middle class. These people are more disproportionately affected by these grave issues of crime and violence. These petty bourgeois who live in their recesses away from the cities, away from congested areas and areas of low income, guess what? They are less concerned because it doesn't come to their neighborhoods. But if they talk fanciful speeches and give fanciful speeches about the US-Venezuela spat, guess what? They would be applauded by other intellectual petty bourgeois within the society, especially other socialist Marxist petty bourgeois. That is why you see they don't pay attention to what is happening right before their eyes. This is not a difficult thing to deal with, okay? And of course, there are people who are insensitive, callous in some respects. And they would say, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much laws we enact. It's not going to prevent domestic violence. While there might be some merit to that, this is not something that you say in times of crisis. This is not things you say when people have concerns and they have fears. Okay? Leadership requires that you say to these people, look, we understand and we feel your pain. And guess what? We are going to do everything within our power to ensure that you, your family, and young women are safe. This is the sort of messaging that they want from their leaders. Of course, also backed up with serious, deliberate action. You see, but there's not much money to be made from providing hotlines and counseling sessions and talking to young women of how to, segregate themselves from unhealthy relationships. Because these things are difficult, but there's not money to be made in that. So these politicians and these collective leaders within the society would not pay attention to this stuff. They will not promote it. There's no money to be made for them. But there's money to be made from international donor agencies for lowering the age of consent. Okay? There's money from donor agencies to be made. So of course you'll see them get excited, overly excited about lowering the age of consent. I mean, they get super excited about it. But issues of domestic violence, issues of violence against women, children, and the elderly, are they as concerned? No. When something happens, everybody jumps on the bandwagon. Oh, there's outrage. And then a few weeks pass and everything goes back to normal. Look right now in this crisis situation where, look what has happened in the last couple of weeks. Is there a hotline to call? There may be women right now who are scared, really scared, because they saw what happened to other women. And they themselves might be currently in very difficult relationships and they have no one to talk to. Does the government immediately set up a hotline so that these people can call and have a conversation? That will be a proactive step. Do they emphasize, do they advertise and say, look, if these resources are there, here, you can go and you can get them. They're available. Is that being advertised? Especially in this situation? So it tells you where priorities are. Now, that's what I tell you. We look at a lot of people in the society, young men, and we take them for granted. And I see as soon as some of these events happen, the same young man, Nick Mack, got on his page and he was sending a warning, to young women that if you get into a situation where you're struck one time, you need to walk out of that situation or get out of that situation. Because that first strike on you would be followed up by continued blows. And he was saying that it doesn't matter how much material things or money that is being flourished on you, that yet still it is not worth your peace and safety and life. This is what the young man said. Now that is leadership. That is statesmanship. And the gentleman is not even serving in a capacity as a statesman. But yet still he shows potential in what he says. So take a look. This was on his Facebook feed. Take a look at it.
Oi. In da da do, do 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 da do do do, do do do. In the shadows, they play their game, raiding riches, leaving hearts in pain. The treasury's robbed while the people cry. We won't back down, we'll rise and defy. They think they own the tides, but we stand strong. It's justice that guides. No more hunger, no more pain. We'll take our stand, let freedom reign. With every heartbeat, we'll claim our place. Together we rise, no time to waste.